two.
So this episode, like and subscribe. Definitely give us some ideas for the next episode. But this episode, as probably a lot of people know, is post the Charlie Kirk assassination. So Austin, Josh, we've been talking about this for quite a good period of time. Um, I think it's sad that we're having to resort to violence to get rid of them, and to get rid of people we don't like. So it's pretty sad and tragic, and you know, they've got someone in custody who they believe who it is, and hopefully justice is served. Josh, I know you went to what was it, a vigil or something like that tonight, right? Did you go and do that, Josh, earlier today? Maybe. Okay, I'll go to you, Austin. So I know you're kind of in the right, networks and everything like that. What's kind of stuff you've been seeing? What's kind of been like people pouring out and everything like that? What were kind of some observations that you've seen?
It's well, I think really the most craziest thing about it is it came right on the heels of that horrible murder of that Ukrainian girl down in Charlotte. So I
Yep.
mean, those two right back to back has definitely been I would say radical. Like I don't want to oversell it, but like there's definitely been like a sense of like radicalization in the opposite direction because now it's like okay, I have seen, like the reaction to it on the left, like there were, I mean, I don't want to oversell that either, but I mean, there was, obviously people like celebrating and stuff. We did kind of talk about that, and I have seen kind of stuff in response now. Like I know there was one guy that like he interrupted a vigil, I think in Idaho, and
Oh yeah, and he got his ass kicked.
oh yeah, they beat him 7 ways to Sunday, and then there was a demonstration in I think Huntington Beach in California, and there was like another scrape there. So I mean, there is definitely like some simmering anger there, and
Yeah.
so it'll definitely be something to kind of watch because this is something like we didn't exactly predict this, but we have talked a lot about like how there is kind of like that potential for like violence and stuff, and so this is
hmm
kind of like I think it's kind of like a sad confirmation of a lot of the stuff we've talked about over the last year.
Yeah, I mean it really is because I think we talked about the Butler stuff. I think we talked a little bit about the stuff in Minnesota. It's stuff we've talked about for quite a good period of time and how it's like, really been growing, and it's getting kind of crazy, like, and that's what I just didn't understand is it's almost just kind of like, you know no one's trying to take the high road on it. And that's what really surprised me with some of these people, kind of on the left that you're talking about. I don't know if you're plugged into the East to University of Tennessee stuff, Austin, but I think there's maybe been about, I think three professors who have been fired.
Yes, three
One at
professors.
UT, one at MTSU, and then one
Um,
at Cumberland.
So, hey Andrew, sorry by the way, my thing glitched.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was three at UT that have been fired, two MTSU professors, a Cumberland University professor. There's been a Williamson County School Board member fired.
Yeah.
Two ETSU professors are put on leave right now, but they should be getting fired the next week or two. But yeah, it's been across the board.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is like I don't, typically I wouldn't be like for this whole getting rid of him and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just like, damn, why are you posting that shit? Why are you posting that shit on Facebook? I'm like, don't put that shit out there. It's like seeing the person who gets in trouble because they're like the guy at work who's like just oblivious to social norms and is getting busted for something. It's like this one girl, you saying something being like Charlie Kirk's a psychopath. I'm glad that his kids don't have to live in a world where their dad's a psychopath and all this other kind of shit. And I'm just like, holy fuck, lady. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, just don't say anything. Like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't fucking say anything. So I mean, you're kind of in North Carolina, Austin, so maybe you pick up some of the stuff that's been going on out there. Um, is it kind of the same thing out there, or no, you're kind of in Nashville as well, so maybe people aren't getting fired for it.
I don't know if he, like, I've honestly not had a chance to sit down and look at that. I do know I did see something come up in my feed today, like there was like some sort of incident at UNC Asheville. But I mean,
Mm.
if anybody knows anything about Asheville, they know it's like liberal as all get out. So I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
yeah. So I'm not really expecting much, but like the surrounding area is really conservative. So,
yeah.
but honestly, like one thing that I keep coming back to, and like other people kind of brought like conversation with me, it's like compare this back to 2020 when the shoe was on the other foot, and it is kind of crazy to realize like how much like the culture has shifted in that sense.
Yeah.
And like as to your point, of, like what people have said, like me and you talked about it. I'm obviously like really right wing, but I was kind of on like a different faction than Charlie Kirk, so I didn't really care much for him like personally. But like
Yeah.
it's
You
like
weren't like seeking out his content, but you
yeah,
were aware of his content.
yeah, like obviously I'm super aware of his content, but it's
Yeah.
like just the response to it, like it's just been so ghoulish. Like it's like you said, like some of the stuff I was seeing, like and like it's one thing if it's like okay, you see like some liberal arts student say something, it's like okay, whatever. I mean, like obviously you shouldn't be saying that, but it's like okay. But then it's like I think the concern to me is kind of like what Josh brought up. It's like you're seeing people in like positions of power saying stuff like that, and then it's kind of like
Yeah.
okay, now this is like we were talking about earlier. Like there was like some like you obviously you're a Knoxville alumni, so you would know better than I do. But like
Yeah.
that group chat that got like exposed, it's like
Well, but that was even like for that, I was like, I didn't think that was as bad because it was like, like that's just like someone's private group chat for like some club that's obviously like left, right? And so it's like, okay, like that for me, I'm like, that's a freedom of speech thing. But I'm like, if they were like sending out their stuff, right? Like I don't think that was like a public chat and that like, oh, I could join right now and see what's going on. But it's one, so for me, I'm like, that's a little bit more private. But I'm like, people are putting shit on Facebook, being like, fuck this guy, and I'm just like, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? That's why I'm like with those group chats, I'm like, yeah, that's not that big of a deal, but you know,
I could let the group chats go. My thing with that though, and I sent it to Josh and I meant to send it to you. Like several of them like worked in. I know one worked in like the housing department, and another one worked in like their financial aid office. So it's kind of
oh,
like,
dude, they're all bullshit jobs. I know people who
yeah,
who got those like resident assistant jobs. They're all bullshit.
okay. So it's not like it'd be like a position of power over people, right?
Well, I
Okay.
mean, technically you are, right? So you're a position of power over your like floor, your 10, 12, however many students are on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say from the people that I know who were in it now are very like kind of
Mm-hmm.
left wing. So it makes sense. And even I tried doing that stuff too, and you could tell it was very like PC culture, all that kind of stuff in those departments.
And like I think one thing like Josh probably doesn't realize, like me and you are kind of older, so we kind of know what it was like to be in college back in like 2020 when everything went down. So I
Yeah.
mean, from what I'm seeing now, it definitely seems like it is a different vibe in that regard. I mean, that stuff's obviously still there, but like that, you just go back to that point about that.
Yeah.
But with the group chat thing, my thing is just like I know the one of the people that got in trouble at MTSU that Josh brought up. I'm pretty sure that was like the vice president or the vice regent. So it's like that was a position of power.
Yeah, I think one of them was like the dean of students. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
It's like eh, this is where I try to balance stuff because like I have seen people on the right go like so far in the direction they're like, oh, we need to get Palantir in there and do like a surveillance state. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
that's too much.
no, we're not doing that. Like I'm old enough, I've been around the block enough to know how that goes down. But I do get kind of the argument of like, okay, if you were in a position of power and you're openly talking about like your joy at seeing somebody get murdered, like I don't really want you in a position of power over other people. Like that to me just
Yeah.
seems like a liability at that point because that's borderline like psychopathic tendencies.
Yeah. So, I want to throw this to Josh, but first I want to. So the one girl who I guess got fired or put, I don't know if they were fired, if they were put on leave, was I looked up her name and then her research, and her research is literally my research and teaching draw from queer studies, feminist studies, critical theory, and psychoanalyst to think about questions of kinship, power, love, sexuality, sovereignty, and post-socialism. And then she literally breaks it out. It's like what comes after state socialism. My teaching is based on the philosophy that learning means being vulnerable to new ideas and problems. As such, my teaching is geared towards seeking newer and more questions rather than having any total answers for existing questions. And I was literally sitting here and I'm like, yeah, that's probably someone who would say something like that,
That's
or
like
like,
textbook.
like put something on Facebook
That is
about this
literally
guy.
like
It's like, oh shit, that's someone who might get fired from this shit.
this is gonna be like a really dated reference. But do you remember Tumblr?
Yes.
That is literally Tumblr as a person.
Dude, well, so the thing was is I hadn't heard about I haven't heard anybody talk about Tumblr in a long time.
Yeah,
But
we're getting old, man.
well, but it was one of those things where I think they were talking about like some of this furry stuff that and I want to get into that. Some of this furry stuff that the shooter was like kind of like maybe into or whatever it was, and they were like giving the background to like he was in a video and they're giving a background to the person or to the viewer, and it was something like, oh yeah, like back in like 2016, 2017, this was big on Tumblr. And I was sitting there, I was like, holy shit, I haven't heard that in a long fucking time. But I remember even then it was like cringy, the girl
Yeah,
blog posts, all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, it's like, oh God. And I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, I didn't think people use that shit anymore because the guy was only like what, 22? The
yeah,
shooter.
something like that.
And I was like, how the fuck does he know about that shit? I haven't heard anybody say that stuff in, almost 10 years.
God, you just made me feel really old. But
Yeah.
like that's definitely like an older Zoomer thing. Like that's kind of
Oh yeah.
more us as millennials or whatever.
So I want to ask Josh something. So since you're kind of doing more stuff with TPUSA, like what's kind of been, I guess, like the feel and the vibe from people that you know over there?
Just like what like the morale is, that kind of like where you're
Yeah, just like
asking.
morale, like what's everyone saying? Have people tried joining? People not join? That kind of stuff.
So it's funny, we one of my best friends, and I've made a lot of good friends that work for or involved with TPUSA in a way. But one of my closest friends that I made this year, actually, she's like the field rep for Midland West Tennessee, and she actually just applied for our and uh, she applied for the same role that I have in Nashville, and so we were talking a little bit, and the way that morale kind of was across campuses was like everybody was in shock for like the first few days there. And right now, Turning Point, like as far as events go, their doors are closed until September the 22nd. So they've got all this week of really no events or anything. But I think in a way, there's been a lot of people that have reached out to get involved. Like I think they said that they had like 5,000 people over the course of just in the southeast region that like signed up. But I guess my question to you all is this, because I have my own concerns here, is and I'll give you my scenarios and tell me if you think it's a different scenario or if you agree with one of my scenarios. But my first scenario is, do you think with this thing happening that Turning Point blows up and it gets like super big and gets better than ever? Number two, do you think it is impossible to replace a guy like Charlie Kirk and it will slowly fade away and not be what it was? Or
I
three, do you think? Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm gonna let Austin answer this first.
Yeah, just tell me like what y'all think happens.
Yeah, what do you think, Austin?
Like, does it blow up or does it inevitably die out? Like, what's the like where like what do you think?
I think it's still kind of up in the air. Like, I mean, obviously now he's kind of got like a martyr status, but like, me and Andrew have been talking about like there is a lot of factionalism on the right now. Like some of the stuff that was like coming out in the last few days was, I know, like they were feeling a lot of pressure because now they're because like like Nick Fuentes and his kind of factions kind of ascendant, so they were kind of responding to that. And it's hard to say. Like the a lot of the take I've seen, Steve Bannon kind of had the same take. He thinks like the Fuentes faction will kind of take more of the energy and kind of the long term gains from it. But I don't know. And like too, the other thing I think about, and Josh, this is probably something you'd be able to answer. Like, is there anybody that can really take his place? Like, the resounding thing I've seen is
Ben
like
Shapiro, isn't that who they're like pushing out there
I
to take over
just
Turning Point?
I'm sure that's who will try to take over Turning Points. Like there was some talk of that, but like I just don't.
That
He's
didn't make sense to me
he's
because
not
that's too far of a
charismatic,
jump.
and yeah, and like he just doesn't appeal to a lot of young like people on the right, shall we say. Like Ben Shapiro is very much an older. I don't want to say dinosaur, but like he definitely appeals to like a certain type of person, and that certain type of person's not like your your average. Like I think we talked about this after the election. Like some of the data came out. It's like young white guys are now voting like silent generation white guys. Like like literally, you have to get to like the 80-year-olds to be like see like the same level of like kind of political beliefs as like your average 25-year-old white guy. So it's like I can't see Shapiro doing it, and like I think Bannon's kind of I kind of agree with Bannon. I just think it'd be the Fuentes faction that takes it because I just can't think of anybody that could really replace Charlie because there was like I think it was either the New York Times or somebody had done like a really good article on this like the other day, and that was kind of the point they made. It's like really Charlie Kirk since like 2016 had kind of like hit like was kind of like the unsung guy that kind of like remade a lot of like the Republican Party's like infrastructure. Like the point they made was like when Trump came in, he kind of destroyed a lot of the older infrastructure and like kind of and Charlie was one that kind of like replaced it.
Yep.
Especially like yeah, like we talk about TPE USA chapters, but like how often do you hear about college Republicans anymore? College Republicans are basically dead. They got replaced by TPE USA. So it's like
Well, and he was big in I think their rural outreach and stuff like that too.
yeah, it was another thing. I think New York Times were up like they were a lot of like the Republican Party's like outreach basically got outsourced to like stuff like TPUSA and stuff. So I mean, like I don't know. I personally I think Bannon's right. I think in the long run it'll be like the Fuentes guys winning out, but yeah, it's just too soon to tell.
So with I don't know if everybody will go Fuentes.
No way Nick Fuentes gets it.
But well, that's what I'm like, I don't think he would, but I'm like, okay, like who on the right is big enough, I guess, to really kind of like own that spot, right? So I'm like, okay, so you're gonna have someone like basically all your Daily Wire guys, right? So it's Ben, that's Michael Knowles, that's who's the other one?
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. Guys who've kind of been doing that kind of like, they did the What's a Woman. That was a big thing that kind of crossed over to Charlie's stuff. I would say you've got Vance, who's probably be on the political side. And then I'd say either, yeah, and I guess Fuentes will get some of them. But I'm like, that's really like those 5 or 6 guys, like maybe Vivek. Um,
I
really
think
the only
Candace
ones who are
Owens. I
like
think Candace Owens has a better shot in that.
well, yeah, I mean, she's in there as well, but it's like that's like really kind of what you're looking at. It's nothing like
Tucker.
no, but see, here's the thing with
No
Tucker is
way.
like they're already
No.
watching Tucker. I'm talking about his replacement.
Boo. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, like, I was like, who's replacing Kirk?
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like
that's
they're
kind of my
already
thing too.
watching
I don't
Tucker
know.
Carlson.
I mean, as far as like factions, like you've kind of got like we'll call it like so kind of like you got Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, kind of on one side, and there's obviously like factional differences between them. And on the other side, you've got like your Ben Shapiro's, your Michael Knowles, your Matt Walsh. Well, I would say Matt Walsh is almost kind of like his own thing, but he's still on kind of that side, if that makes sense to me, like a sub faction. But I
Kind
just can't. I mean, like as far as like the Daily Wire and stuff like that, those guys, like not to put too fine of a point on it, they're all old. Like they're
oh
all
yeah, they're
millennials.
all millennials.
So it's not like they really appealing. Like that is one thing I've seen consistently people said, and that's kind of it's something I kind of agree with. Charlie he was a millennial, but he was on the younger side of millennial, so he was still
Yeah, he's
able to kind of
31.
so he was still kind of able to like relate to Zoomers. Like he was still close enough to be able to like. And you really can't. Like I'm sorry, like your millennial conservatives, they might still have an audience, but they don't have that ability to kind of really get that generational outreach. I mean, that's kind of yeah, you kind of inadvertently stepped on it because you're like, yeah, they kind of did their "what is a woman" thing, and then Charlie kind of stole their thunder and kind of ran with it. So it's like it's I just personally I just can't see anybody in particular replacing him. I think it's going to be a situation where like everybody's going to eat some faction of his audience, and like It'll definitely be something to watch, in my opinion. That's
They
just
might
my
get
thing.
bought out if that happens.
I mean, Shapiro has talked about buying out his kind of organization, so that's very possible. But like, it's like I said, I just don't see Ben Shapiro having the charisma to like keep that audience.
No, I don't think either, and I think the issues were different. I mean, and that's what I always was thinking with Kirk, and I was telling people, I was like, people don't like, people pull up all these old videos, but I'm like, look at a lot of his recent stuff. When he was on the what's it called? The Gavin Newsom podcast. He was like one of the first ones on that podcast, and he's sitting there, he was like, yeah, you guys have to, literally was like, you have to do cost of living, social issues, like you need to work on these things and just acknowledge some basic realities. And he's like, but you guys are just unwilling to do that, right? Like, and then like, he started kind of coming around on the whole Gaza thing. He was, very big in the affordability. That's really where he started picking up some stuff there. And I'm like, I don't think Ben Shapiro is really talking about that. I don't think Michael Knowles is talking about it. I don't know if Candace Owens is really talking about all that stuff. She talked about, bits and pieces, and same thing with Ben Shapiro. But it's like they're not really. It's not the same. It's like it goes back to what you're saying, Austin. It's like they're speaking to another generation. And he's speaking to the people who are just in college and coming out.
Yeah,
Those people are speaking to people who've you know they're taking their 10-year-old to the baseball game.
yeah,
So
and
go ahead.
I like too. Like you kind of like the other day, I saw something that was like Ben Shapiro, and like how do you say it, Mark
Levin
Levin. Okay,
or
like
Levine.
they're in a
Levine.
whole podcast on like Israel and stuff, and it's like I'm sorry that doesn't resonate with young people. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
and like it's kind of like you said, like Charlie was starting to kind of hedge on some stuff, especially when it came to like Gaza and stuff. Like obviously he was very pro-Israel. Like I don't want to undersell that, but he was also like I think he could kind of see the headwinds enough to kind of like pivot on that to like
Yeah.
somewhat reestablish credibility. So it's like I definitely can't see Ben Shapiro doing that, like for sure.
No, no.
It's like yeah, that stuff appealed to boomers. Like boomers go crazy for that, but also
Yeah.
boomers like again, not to put too fine a point on, boomers not going to be around much longer. Like that is like a point like we've hammered home a lot. I think over the last year, especially, it's like they're all in their 60s and 70s. Some of them are starting to hit 80, and it's like that's yeah. I think that was one of Charlie's big selling points was he was able to at least reach the young in like a sense. So it's like like that's going to be a big thing going forward, especially because like there's already signs that like hey like it's like you said like affordability that's the big thing and like so it's really it's going to be really curious to see how that plays out.
So I want to switch to something else. So it was a good train of thought there, Josh. Um, and so I want to kind of open this up. So I think this could potentially get into some conspiracy theories. I know Josh loves that shit. So let's go into what happened with the actual event, right? So like I'm still kind of confused, and I think Austin, you and I talked about this today. There's two kind of questions. It's like the timeline's kind of messed up, and then I still don't understand what happened with the gun. Like I still don't understand any of that like train of thought, right? I'm like, okay, did he disassemble it? Did he not disassemble it? How long was he? Because you'd have time to do that, probably some tools, all this other kind of stuff. So, do you, Josh, or also know anything about like what happened and like what is still, I guess, there to be known?
Okay, so do you want me to go here? Because I'm gonna go deep into the weeds here on this thing, or do you want
Go
Austin?
for it. I haven't followed it for like 2 or 3 days.
Okay, I mean, so are you just to clarify here, like, are you wanting like my opinion of what I think happened, like the conspiracy side, or are you like what do you like?
Well,
What do you
just say what like happened, or and then say what you believe happened.
So, okay, so from what I know happened was that obviously they were gathered, by the hundreds or thousands,
Yeah.
whatever. And then someone had like a video of a guy that was on a roof, and then there was also like I guess that old dude in the crowd did something that gave off the vibe that he might have had a gun or whatever. And so then obviously Kirk is like talking. He literally talks about gun violence, and then like 2 seconds later, you hear shots. Obviously, if you haven't seen that video, it's really brutal, but like coming out of his neck. And then he goes limp, and then everybody scatters. So that's like what I know happened. And then obviously they arrested the older guy, and then turned out he wasn't the dude. And then the kid's like dad said that he came home and like confessed, and they like pieced together like a note that he had like written, 22 years old, like wrote a note saying that he had an opportunity to kill Kirk, and he was just going to do it. And so that's what I know. Like that has at least been told to the public. Like that's what I know that happened, and I know the public knows that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you. So then what do you think happened?
I think it was professionally planned.
That's interesting. Why do you think that?
Um, well, gentlemen, I don't know about you all, and I mean, I'm a pro 2A guy, but no offense, but like a 30 sticks at 200 yards, yeah, it's not a hard shot, but like to absolutely like go jugular in one go and to one shot that thing, like, he had to know a little bit about what he was doing, and like you don't just put like some kid that's like pro trans, like liberal lesbian or whatever, and like they're like this, and they're these anti-gun people, and like he's just casually a perfect shot on the first try. Like, so A, that, and B, I just I mean, again, like that shot alone, the shot alone raised suspicion to me, because I'm like, okay, well, how is this liberal person doing this, and then flip around, and like nobody really had an answer. It was like, okay, it was like, we got this old guy, and then it's like into the night, okay, yeah, we have no evidence, we're gonna like offer up a reward for whatever. But it was like nobody, checked a badge on that building, nobody checked, this and that. Like it just felt a little too almost easy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, see, and the thing with him and the gun that I don't understand is, yeah, I think it's probably a chip shot, you know. And I think, he's was around guns, and so I'm like, okay, like I get that, but I still have like my okay, like where you aim in center mass, where you aim in for like a headshot, and then I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, if he disassembled his weapon, did he mess with the scope of the gun? Usually you can kind of mess that, throw that stuff off. So I'm like, maybe that's why he went for maybe it ended up hitting the jugular, and then maybe he was focused on somewhere else. Maybe it was the angle, all that other kind of stuff. I'm curious to see what goes on with that, because the other thing is, I don't think there was any pictures of him with the gun before before the shooting, right? And so I'm like, okay, there's nothing there, and you disassembled it or reassembled it. Like, I'm like, okay, like I don't know if that would fit in the backpack though. So I don't know. I mean, do you know anything, Austin? Do you know of what's like kind of like the background? I know there still seems like to be a bunch of stuff, and I know the FBI kind of butchered it, but what do we like? How did the gun get there? And then also, they said that he snuck it in his leg, but they're also saying he disassembled it on the way back. Like what do we know actually happened with that? Because that's what I feel like is like the linchpin of what's true and not true.
So, from what I've seen from gun guys, because I've personally never owned a Mauser, so I can't personally attest to that. That rifle, from what I've been told, would be very hard to disassemble and reassemble on the fly like that.
Yeah.
So, judging from his backpack, I don't think he could have smuggled it in through that. Now that I could be wrong on that, but so the two prevailing thoughts I've seen is either he had stashed it before, or like I sent you that photo where it looked like he may have been hiding it in his pants.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, like
See,
that would be
I'm
kind of hard.
like that. That's like someone who owns probably a gun that's about that same size. I'm like, that's fucking hard to do.
Yeah, it's also, it's like I said, it'd be really hard to disassemble. So then it's like, did he stash it up there before? Did he stash it on campus? And then that opens so many questions in of itself. So it's like, it'll be very curious to see how that comes. And like they've still not released, like in none of like the photos they've released and stuff, it's not visible on them.
Yeah.
and it's like I said, like everybody I talked to said that gun would be very hard to disassemble and reassemble like that. Like I don't know, like again, I've never personally owned one, so I can't test this. But one person said like he tools to like just like in his shop to like disassemble it because the way it's manufactured, because it's a Mauser's a German, so it's, it's not. Let's say the Germans overcomplicate things, but so it's like I don't know, like that I don't I don't think the shot was too crazy from. I mean, 200 yards is not like something you can do on the fly, but it's also not necessarily hard,
Yeah,
especially
you got to know what you're doing.
yeah. So I don't think it would be
Like you
necessarily.
have to know how to operate the gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
you got to at least have some familiarity, but it's not like it's only a trained sniper could do. It's like something like if you're a deer hunter for not long enough time, I think it's something you could do. But like from looking at it, he did have a fairly clear line of sight. But then like the thing that other people brought up to me is like, okay, like he was sitting down, so that also helped. But then it's also like it was kind of like a chaotic, crowded environment. So I mean, like there's that factor too. So I mean, personally, I don't think he was aiming for his artery. What I think happened was he was either aiming for like a center mass shot or maybe like a headshot, because aiming for the artery, I've never heard of that before. That's kind of a weird shot
No.
in of itself.
Yeah, I don't think he was doing that. That's why I'm like, I think he was aiming like center of mass. But I'm like, if you're a good shot with a 30-06 at 200 yards, you should be probably about 2 inches is your spread. And so I'm like, okay, like if you're aiming center of mass, like I don't see how if you're shooting here that you're gonna end up hitting them here.
I could
You
sit.
shoot here, like maybe not there. That's what I'm like I don't I'd want to know what he says he was aiming at.
One thing we probably need to do, and I can do this off the show. Probably I'll have to sit down and figure it out. You can figure out from like the windage what like his drop or what his spread should have been. Like if there's like a
Oh yeah, you can calculate it. I
yeah,
just haven't
we
done
could
it.
probably sit down and calculate that. Honestly, it probably wouldn't be too hard. But like yeah, so I'm not.
Well, and so real quick, so when I got my rifle, it's it's not a Mauser. I don't think it's a Mauser action. But it's basically a Remington 700, which I think was copied off of
good
maybe.
gun, good gun. By the way,
Yeah, so
and by the way, I do dude like I shoot like I've done deer hunting. Like I have a 30-06. Like
yeah. No,
I know that shot, and that's the reason why. Like I didn't mean to like get like too in the hole of like that, but I'm just saying like that is not like to me. Obviously, I know like obviously like I can probably do it. Like with like you said, I know you're still. I don't mean to tangent here. I just like
No,
I've shot
yeah.
a 30-06 a lot of times, dude, and like if that like unless he had been like practicing or knew how to shoot a gun, like that is not an easy shot unless you kind of have knowledge of it.
well, and
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying doesn't make sense because if he, that's what I was gonna say with the disassembling is when I got my rifle, it usually comes as like a stock and then like the barrel the barrel setup. And so then usually, you kind of assemble it in the stock and then you kind of maybe tie some stuff down. And I'm like, but your barrel is, say it's a 20-inch barrel. I mean, that's not going to be, that's not just going to be hanging out of your, or be hidden in your backpack, right? Like, I mean, unless now you could get dimensions and you can figure it all out. But, like, if you assemble this and disassemble it, like I said, you're throwing off that zero on
optics.
that gun.
See that was the thing too about like if he put it down his pants. Like the thing I instantly went to is like that probably messed with his optics.
Yeah.
So the one thing I kind of think about is apparently like the rest of his family is like really conservative. Like they're apparently like kind of firm Trump people. So I would not be surprised if they're like hunters. I would imagine when he was younger, he may have went hunting.
So did we know? Did we ever find out if that was registered under him or his dad?
That's a good question. I hadn't seen anything. Like I originally,
I haven't seen anything either.
well, there was like some
There's
rumor
no
going around.
knowledge of that. He pled the fifth. No knowledge of that.
The dad?
No, the kid, like he's not talking. That's why I think
Well,
it's professionally planned. I think he was a fall guy or something, dude. Because like he's not saying shit.
Well, see, and I know his family's obviously came around guns and everything like that. But when they first showed it was a Mauser. I remember I told you guys I was like it's either his dad's or someone's dad's, um, or it's like something used for hunting, all that kind of stuff. I was like, you know, I think it was that specific gun was like a later edition. So I was like, you know, I don't think that was his, unless you bought it secondhand or something like that, or it might have been like a military surplus. But I was like, I think that's someone else's gun, and that's why I was like, okay, like I would be also curious. Okay, like so did he steal the gun from his dad, and then maybe his dad didn't know, or maybe his dad did know. Like that's when you kind of start getting into that stuff, where I'm like, that'd be interesting to know. Like, oh, maybe Billy's out, hunting or something. And he just took the gun out, you know?
I had seen something claimed, and I didn't bother to look into it because, like, you know how
Mm.
like when stuff first starts, you take everything with a grain of salt. But somebody claimed that he got that gun from like a friend or something, or it was like a drop
Mm.
off. And I
No,
do know,
he was trying to drop it off after he shot.
yeah,
He was trying to
so
give
like,
it to his roommate or whatever, right?
yeah. Well, then too, I do know the FBI came out today and said they were investigating like for if there was other people connected to it, and they did claim that like at least 10 other people had like advanced knowledge because like he was in like some Discord chats like saying stuff. So the theory I'm seeing going around, and this kind of does make sense because I do know there is like several organizations out there. Like if he really was tied into Antifa, they do have like a lot of like what they call gun clubs out there, which is kind of like they're kind of like I don't know what the right term for it would be. Like their organizations or like their sales where they like do gun training and stuff. And like these are like ostensibly like revolutionary type, like far left kind of. I would
You
say,
talking about like paramilitary?
yeah, like paramilitary, like that does exist out west. Like that is kind of common. Like it's more common up in like the Pacific Northwest, but I do know Salt Lake City has several organizations. I do know at least one. There was people saying the FBI need to look into because like there was some indications he was connected to him, so it could have been like that type of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and like there has been other cases like linked to that. Like I mean, it's obviously not as potent as it was back in like 2020, but like there is obviously still the organizations around. So if I was thinking like a larger conspiracy, I kind of agree with Josh. Like there is indications here that like there was something more. I don't think it's necessarily like the government did it, but I do think it would. If I had to pick something, I would definitely say like probably one of these like
Yeah, I don't believe the government did it. Like that was not where I was going with that. I just
yeah.
think it was professionally planned somewhere else.
I think me and you are kind of the same wavelength. Then we're both kind of like okay, like this definitely seems like there is like some sort of organization to it because like especially if like that gun got dropped off like that to me would be like a very firm indication because that's like how do you sneak that onto campus.
Well, and I think it's also, you know, I still don't understand. So this old guy got arrested for doing what? You know?
That thing is weird by the way because apparently he even got interviewed for like a 9/11 documentary or something.
Was he?
Yeah, like he got interviewed for like I think
Yeah,
it
it
was
was weird. It was something weird, Austin.
yeah, and like apparently that guy's like a known like he's really bad to like claim he did stuff and like just really throws off police investigations out that way. So like
Hmm.
that as soon as that happened, everybody's like, okay, that's obviously a patsy to cover that guy getting away, and it worked. He got away for like what was it like almost 2 or 3 days before they caught him. So it's like
Yeah. Well, and he drove what, 250 miles home.
yeah, the only
And
reason he got
that's
caught
why
is
I was like, okay, like this old guy, like there's something going on there, like I'm surprised that, they haven't, really I haven't seen anything to say what he's done. I've just seen him on the ground and then him be like, shoot me, or like something like when they're dragging him out. And I was like, okay, this guy's fucked up or senile. But I'm
well,
like, I don't know what he really got charged for or got in trouble for.
and like the other guy they arrested, like there's been almost no talk about that. That one was really
Hmm.
weird because that guy, I think his name was like Koweshi or Qureshi or something. It sounds vaguely Middle Eastern,
Hmm.
but he was like a TPUSA staffer, and like they've never like they pretty much was like, oh, he's fine, and then they just let him go, and like there was nothing more said about that, and that's it's like okay, first of all, why did you arrest one of their staffers? That doesn't make any sense, and that seems kind of odd. You arrested somebody from Kirk's organization, like what was the thought process there? And like they've just been silent about that.
What do you think, Josh, about where people were saying some of the security guards were like spotters?
Um, That's a weird thing, dude. Like I saw this video where they're like
Like, is
they
that
caught
something you
this.
think, or is that like I know you've seen it, dude? I've seen that shit on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's like, oh my god, like this security guard had like a palm pistol or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Well, and he's like messing with his
Um,
hat or whatever, and
you
like,
know, again, it comes to that weird spot where it's like I don't know. I wish I had a better answer because we're in a world now where like conspiracy theories are like fun, and it's kind of hard to do things, um, straight up just because of the internet and things, and everybody's got a camera out. So I mean, in theory, Andrew, if me and you'd have been standing in that crowd, and if you'd have touched your like jacket to sneeze, they'd have been like, "Oh, you're a spotter."
oh yeah,
So it's like there is a level of like I don't know. Um, I find it hard though after what happened to Trump with his assassination attempt. I find it hard that they didn't like highly vet the security. And I say that because I've done enough events now, and especially this past year, Mike Johnson has literally made it a point for all of Congress members to have their own security. Because I have not been
oh
to an
yeah.
event this year where a Congress member didn't have a shit ton of protesters outside to the point where it was like, what the hell is going on? So I find it hard that they wouldn't vet out security. But I mean, also, if you're Charlie Kirk, like, if these are not like off-duty police officers or actual like security, not just like the mall cop, um, then what are you actually doing?
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's one of those like probably can go 100 different ways on it in my mind.
What do you
Um,
think, Austin?
Well, another thing that really sticks out to me, and this to me seems more like an organizational failure than like necessarily conspiratorial, but like there was 3,000 people attending that, and they only had 6 police officers on top of
Oh
his
yeah,
security, so it's like that was completely inadequate. And then two, like obviously it's an outdoor environment, so that's hard to control in of itself, but it's like everybody I've seen talk about. It's like you're sitting down in an open space. There's multiple elevated positions around you. That was, I
I know,
mean,
like go inside, dude.
and I
You know,
know sitting outside's his thing, but like that was about the worst possible place he could have been positioned. It
yeah.
really was, and like it just kind of goes back to what you're saying. Like there were so many security failures in this. It is kind of insane in of itself. Which I
You
don't.
know, but when people talk about like, oh, these security failures, blah blah blah, I'm like, he probably paid for that security.
Oh yeah.
And it's like it's one of those things where it's like, he probably sat there and was like, yeah, like I'm gonna get these security guys. He probably just working with a firm. They probably set it up. These people have probably done this before, maybe ex-military, like you say, ex-military, ex-cop. And I'm like, but he probably, a decision had to be made somewhere along the line that was like, okay, this event probably needs 6 people. And those 6 people are probably expensive as fuck for, him to like maintain and to have. Like I could see an event being like, hey, you got to pay me $3,000 and I'll be your private security for the day times, you know, uh, 6 guys.
Oh,
That's a shit ton of money.
I completely forgot about this. They didn't even have an ambulance on standby. They had to rush
No,
to
they
the
threw him in the
door.
back of a fucking police car.
Yeah, and it's like how amateur. Like it just everything I seen from that was like everybody dropped the ball on that.
Again, I come back to I've seen a lot of these security things. It's where I have had issues. Like we just had an event like recently. Our national person that has my job was doing a breakfast event with Congressman Andy Ogles, and the security firm that like they had there was like a bunch of fucking mall cops essentially.
Yeah.
And we even had a whole meeting about, from now on, if we're doing an event with security, like we are making sure these are like off-duty police officers or actual law enforcement. Like you get these mall cops in place, like you said, it does become amateur hour.
Yeah. Dude, I think about it and I'm just like, man. And you
It,
know, and I was also just like, okay, like using your resources, like they had like all 6 of them just standing up there with them. And I'm like, guys, like you don't need 6 people up there. You need maybe like 3, and then you need to have a few other ones, kind of dispersed out and everything like that. Like that just wasn't even a good use of resources.
the other thing that kind of sticks out to me, and I think we talked about it a little bit when it happened, like there was multiple people taking videos of him up on that roof. Like there was, I
Oh
think I even
yeah.
sent you one. It was like hey, there's somebody up on the roof. That's
Well,
really
dude, it's the
weird.
same thing with Butler. It's like, oh, hey, look, there's a guy up there who looks suspicious, just walking across or running across up there, getting over into us. Looks like a prone position, overlooking the crowd. It's like, yeah, like people were
It's
seeing this shit. I don't know how they didn't see it.
That's what I was about to say. It's like if all these random like students were like, "Hey, this is suspicious," like these six security, like I can't remember how many security guards it was, and like six police officers. It's like I get you guys during crowd control, but I mean, come on, like it was obvious from the platform. You could see the guy. Like there was, somebody did like an angle, and it was like, yeah, you could clearly see somebody up there from where they were sitting. So it's like
Yeah.
maybe they just thought, oh, maybe it's like a workman or something. But then it just goes back to it seems like everything that could have went wrong in this.
Yeah. So, um, kind of ending on, you know,
Oh, real quick, I do have a question, real
go
quick.
ahead, Josh.
Sorry. So, just real quick, due to the fact that we're on this topic anyway, and now that let's
Go
just
for it.
hypothetically say that this is the guy, whatever. Are you all capital punishment believers? Like, are you all pro death penalty, or are you like, no?
So it's interesting you brought this up. I immediately thought of, you remember Lake and Riley?
Was
Yeah,
that
yeah, 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 yeah. The Lake and Riley girl.
So I immediately kind of thought about something like that, where it was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up pleading guilty to overturn that. And I think that the only reason, kind of like the governor and some of the other ones are looking for capital punishment is because I feel like it's just kind of very like political, like, hey, he took a shot at us. We gotta show strong on all of this. This is attack at the core, that kind of stuff, which is 100% valid. But it's like I hate to kind of say like, yeah, like this would be it because it's almost like it's just weird because it's in that political space, you know? You know what I'm saying, Josh?
Yeah, I do. That makes sense. I agree.
But I mean, I'm like at the same time, I'm like, let that fucker fry. Like, I'm not against it either. I'm like, hey, I think we got something to work with here. We got something to work with. If you said this was a deliberate premeditation, this kid was fucked up. I'm like, bye. But I'm just like,
Absolutely.
I just hate that it's like, oh well, like immediately it's like, oh, we're gonna pursue the death penalty before they even like know who the guy is.
That's a fair point. I'm glad you got your take there.
What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, I'm in favor of capital punishment. Like, I feel like that's kind of a necessity in this case. Like, if we're kind of in a situation now where this is getting like we're starting to see more and more cases of political violence, and this has probably been the most. I don't want to say, well, I guess the assassination attempt would be like lesser because it didn't succeed. But I mean, this has obviously been like the most high profile, successful case in a while. So yeah, I
I
do
mean,
think.
since Martin Luther King, right? If we're talking like successful, like
Yeah, or maybe I was kind of thinking like the 2017, like when they shot up that baseball game, the congressional, if you remember that.
yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
Scalise got shot, right?
Yeah, so I was
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
thinking,
talking. I'm talking about like successful. Like the guy died. Like the guy they shot died.
yeah, well, I don't want to say King but yeah, kind of in that era. We'll definitely say that at least that era.
Yeah, I'd say maybe like the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, so like I think you got to send a message on this one. Like it really does come down to that, and like yeah, I just you got to send a message on this one.
So I want to kind of end on, um, do you think that, um, do you think it's apparent how he became radicalized? Like, do you think, like, what do you, like, do you think it, like, we're like, hey, like, this is what made him radical? Because I think, Austin, we were talking earlier about this, where it's like, we really want to know, like, what turned him. Was it like, hey, he had a guy friend who's transitioning to a woman, or was it like, online video games? He's only in semester for, or he's only in college for a semester, right? And so it's like, how, like, what turned him? What was that issue, you know? So do you think we know what turned him yet, or do you think it's still kind of like up in the air? Because I feel like there's a bunch of different themes that are out there. It's that Antifa stuff. I guess now it's that trans stuff. What do you think, Austin?
Something happened there. It's really weird because like his grandmother was interviewed and said like he was kind of like the only one in the family that had those views. Like everybody else was kind of like your normie, like Republican Trump kind of supporting
Oh yeah,
family.
you're a normal Utah Republican. You're Mitt Romney or something.
Yeah, so it's like, well, apparently his grandmother even said they were like MAGA people. They weren't just like Mitt Romney types. Like they were full
Mm.
on like Trump people. So it's like something happened there, and like nobody's really gave a firm timeline on when he switched. It was kind of obvious when he got in his like it, somewhere in the last 4 years has kind of been the indication I've been given. Like, so like he dressed up as like Trump as in like Halloween of 2017. So it's like this had to be something fairly within the last 4 to 5 years. So like it that I'm not seeing anything firmly established on that. Like he definitely was tied into like leftist like Discord, but it's like okay, how did you even get in those? Would be my first question.
Well, but he like did a lot of like Halloween shit as like him being memes, you know? Like there was one of like some soldier or some like meme or whatever he dressed up as. And it's like, it could be anything. Like he could have had this for a long time.
Yeah, there's some like I'm gonna be very curious to see what comes out of that. I think that'll be another
Well,
very interesting detail.
I don't think we ever learned what happened with radicalized the guy in Butler, did we?
No, they've been very quiet on that one too.
Yeah.
You know the like the OG one we've never heard anything about. Stephen Paddock in Las Vegas. That one they've completely
Oh
pushed
yeah.
that one under the rug.
Well, they released the video. Didn't you send that out?
Yeah, like and they like it confirmed they lied about like not trying to get us off topic, but just like that is kind of a lot of these like the Butler one, this one were like overtly political, and then there has been rumors for a while that there was some weird stuff with that Las Vegas one. So it's like you kind of get an idea that like there's probably something more to this, and like that's another weird one where it's like there's so many details have been left out, and we just don't know. So I mean, like with like I hate to say it, with like the school shooters and stuff like that, like pretty quickly you have an idea like okay, this was either some sort of disturbed individual or whatever. But these political ones, they're always like really like cagey about, and that's very interesting in of itself, I think.
Yeah. So actually, I want to end on this. Do you think, um, I'm gonna say retaliation, but do you think there's gonna be like a targeting of someone on the left? Awesome. And then I'll go to you, Josh.
Uh,
It's as sad as it sounds. Like, do you think that's something that's gonna happen?
I want to say no, simply because I know how a lot of like normies are kind of viewing this, but at the same time, I can't say that anymore because it does seem like.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays it seems like it's mostly on the left, but it wasn't that long ago. Like people on the right were willing to get down. So I mean, it would not surprise me. So I mean, Peter Turchin, which I think I've talked about him before, but he oversees this one like thing for I think it's the universities like he's at or whatever. And it's like the political violence database, and they said that they've been tracking it, and they're like, yeah, political assassinations are now like the highest they've been since like the Civil War. So it's like
Mm.
looking at it, it's like yeah, I mean statistically speaking, it would be likely there'd be something. Even if not necessarily retaliation, what if like another somebody gets inspired and decides to take a pot shot at somebody else? I mean, uh,
Yeah.
we spoke about Nick Fuentes earlier. Like there was a guy showed up to his house, I think December, with like a crossbow trying to kill him. So I mean, it definitely would not surprise me.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
No.
You don't think
Um, I just got back from a vigil, dude, and like it's funny. I sit back and I'm like, it's funny. You watch like what happened with George Floyd and all this stuff on the left, and it's like when stuff like this happens on the left, where it's like, okay, it's like, oh my God, they killed George Floyd or they did this. The left gets out here and it's like they're
they're breaking into stores, they're robbing the place, they're causing violence. Like on the right, that's one thing I will say I haven't like. And Austin's right. There was a point in time when it was like the right was ready to get down, but it's like nowadays I think it is just more of like a like you just don't really see that on our side of it. You just don't. Like I said, instead of freaking out and going out and like trying to assassinate, a political figure on the left, it's like people have these vigils, and it's just like, okay, we're going to come back stronger than ever. But like, you don't see like violence coming from it. So I'm on the no side.
Okay. We'll send it there. If you like what we're posting, like, subscribe, everything like that. I think the next one, Austin, I think we might be doing something on Venezuela. Is that what I'm hearing?
Ooh, can we do that this week?
Yeah. We can do it this week.
Cool, because that would give me. I've got all my people are back in the office, so we will have clips ready for everybody. So subscribe, like us.
Yeah.
We'll have clips coming out this week.
Sweet. All right. I'll see you guys later.
All right, see
All
you.
right, see you boys.